Hey, it's Drybear. We had the class balance changes going into today's update shown for a while. It was over the weekend. If you're looking for those, I covered those in a separate video going over the class changes, just the balance changes that went into this specific update for December 20th. But they snuck in some changes that were pretty massive for Mythic Plus, which was kind of understandable. A couple of the Mythic Plus dungeons were extremely difficult in some situations. And so they ended up making some adjustments. So today we're going to go through all the adjustments that they snuck into the update. In case you weren't aware, we'll go through all of those so you know what's going on. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. See you there. Now let's jump right into it. Some of these are not too surprising, to be honest. There's some things in here, specifically like Ruby Life Pools, a little bit in the Temple of Jade Serpent that were just kind of honestly untenable, and high keys 15 to 20 it was basically like a one shot, or it was just too much. So they say season 1 is off to a roaring start. True, I agree. People play a lot of dungeons and stuff, and they want to be careful not to change too much, but there's some things that they knew they had to act on, so they went ahead and did it. Starting with Algathar Academy. The hardest boss in the dungeon by far is the tree boss. It is bonkers difficult. It's very hard to heal, and it can be very challenging. So what they did is they changed the aggravated skitterfly darting sting damage. They reduced that damage by 25%, and it should now try to sting different targets. Sometimes it would hit the same target all at once, and they would just drop dead. So a little bit less damage, and it should try to spread it a little bit more. Resolved an issue with Spectral Invoker's arcane missiles to not scale properly. Wasn't really a big deal. Overgrown Ancient. This is the boss that we were talking about, the big boss. Ancient Branch is the little tree ant that spawns that casts heal. The health on it has reduced by 40%. You ended up cleaving this after the first interrupt to bring it in anyways, but dropping 40% on it is nice. I'm guessing that there were a lot of situations where people were just having to divert a lot of DPS to kill it, and then once they ran out of interrupts, it started getting its heal off, which was pretty annoying, especially on Fortified week where you have, or on Tyrannical week where you have a little extra there. Azure Vaults is probably the longest dungeon that we have. Conjured Lasher health reduced by 20%. You end up trying to avoid these often, but when you can't, they did have a little bit too much HP. Arcane Tender's infused ground damage reduced by 33%. Honestly, the infused ground sometimes would kill an entire run. Like, people would die to it repeatedly, and then the key would be dead, and everyone would run away and leave the group. So damage coming down, that is nice. Azure Blade, this one, it depends on the route you're running. This is the boss that has like summons the ads and has the orbs everywhere. Depending on your route, you may not clear the whole room, and so it can be kind of frustrating if some of these things went off. So overwhelming energy damage reduced by 25%. That's going to help on high keys, especially Tyrannical, where you have to heal a bunch. Overwhelming energy cast increased from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. So a whole other extra and cast time on that. Super nice. It's going to make it a lot cleaner. There's now a delay before overwhelming energy inflicts damage and expels ancient orb fragments was instant. So this made it especially for melee, it became really difficult to dodge, so that's going to be a little bit easier. Ancient Orb damage reduced by 25%, so overall overwhelming energy, our Ancient Orb damage coming down, and then fixed 2 issues around the broadcast and cast time of overwhelming energy. Court of Stars, Legion Hound's Fellblaze Puddle now properly has a screen effect. This is the goopy on the Legion Hound that, honestly, if you needed the screen effect to know not to stand in it, that's probably more of a personal issue. But it's nice that the screen effect is back. Halls of Valor. This one was nuts because we started with Fort Raging Week, and okay, so a couple things here. First, the wolves in Fenrir's area, the ones that just shred people, they leap for the throat. The damage on that has been reduced by 20%. It was bonkers damage. It also resolved an issue that caused the leap for the throat to target only the person that has aggro. So on Fort Raging, they would enrage, and then they would all jump the tank, and even if they had cooldowns up on high keys, sometimes they would just instantly drop dead into the dirt. So this is going to make it so it spreads the damage out like it's supposed to, and the damage on it has been reduced, which is nice. Fenrir's Claw's Frenzy cast time has been increased to 1 second. It was instant before. and now has a visual to indicate the damage it inflicts is split by targets in the area of effect. So you know to stack that for that as well. Not good offensive, TNO. Couple ads in here that were pretty nasty. Soul Harvester's Deathbolt Volley. This is right in front of the dual boss with the bow and the two centaurs that you fight. The Deathbolt Volley has been doubled in cast time, so it's easier to interrupt. And Deathbolt Volley and Shatter Soul are now cast less frequently. It got pretty nasty. They just started to stack up a bunch, and people, if they weren't watching, they could just get one shot accidentally. The Corruptor's Deathbolt cast time increased to 2 seconds, so it's easier to interrupt. It comes in a group of other interrupts, so it's nice. And the Necrotic Eruption, which is the orb, is now cast less frequently. It was basically you'd get like 3 to 5 of them up all the time, and you'd have to be running around constantly. Deathspeaker Chant of the Dead cast time increased to 8 seconds and is now cast less frequently. The Mystic's Swift Wind cast increased to 3 seconds instead of 2, so a little bit easier to deal with. Risen Warrior's Mortal Strike duration reduced to 4 seconds, and it was 10. This would kill your tank or anyone that got hit by it, and it now casts less frequency. Desecrated Ohuna's Rotting Wind range reduced 25 yards, and it was 40 yards, so that they have to come in closer so that they can be part of the party instead of, you know, being up in the air and being annoying. Raging Tempest, the elemental boss. This one is incredibly difficult to heal, especially if people let orbs through. Electrical storm damage reduced by 15%. Energy surge duration reduced to 8 seconds instead of 10 seconds. So it'll fall off a little bit easier. Super nice. Ruby Life Pools, probably the hardest dungeon in the game for just in general. Some of the mobs in here are absolutely out of control. So some changes here. Scorchlings, which are like little baby ads along the circle next to the second boss. They no longer cast Burning Touch, which is nice. You don't have to worry about cleansing that or dealing with it. Thunderhead and Flame Gullet, the two dragons on either side of the ad areas, are now visible from much further away, making their flight path easier to keep track of. This was a problem because oftentimes the tank would move up and pull a pack without realizing that they aggroed or someone aggroed the dragon. The dragon would fly down and aggro mid. And honestly, Thunderhead and Flame Gullet, they do ridiculous damage. They can wipe a whole group very easily. The cast time of their Storm Breath and Flame Breath is increased to 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds. You have more time to get out of the way, which is really nice. The Flame Dancer's Flame Dance channel duration is increased to 6 seconds instead of 4 seconds. And then the Blazebound Destroyer's Living Bomb, periodic damage reduced by 40%. So I think this is great because the Living Bomb's going to explode anyway and knock that person up in the air. They're going to take a bunch of damage. It became a very serious healing window if they were at 50% health because of one of these big dragons, and then they got Living Bomb on them, and they started dying from the dot, and then they were going to explode. You had to use cooldowns to keep that person alive, and then they would just cast Living Bomb again. So it got kind of out of control. On the last platform before the final boss, Tempest Channelers, the Lightning Storm damage has been reduced by 20%, and the duration has been reduced by 20%. Super nice. This one, it does ridiculous damage. So both those coming down is nice. Blaze Hoof, which is the second boss, 15% health reduction. You do have to kill the ads. The ad itself has a reduction of 20% health. I think the core of this fight is supposed to be around dodging the molten boulders, dodging the AoE fire, managing your space properly, and staying on the same side of the big patches, and then kicking and attacking the ad properly as well. It's not really supposed to be like, you know, especially it felt like Tyrannical Week when it was Fort Week on this boss. So they ended up reducing the health on both of them. Kirak and Urquhart, the last two bosses, the last boss in the dungeon, both their healths are reduced by 10%. And while Kirak is grounded, Flame Spit, which is the ground patch, will now target a maximum of 3 players instead of 5. This is awesome. It's going to give you a lot more room to play with. And because Karaka is always targetable, it's nice to have the health come down. And honestly, again, just like Blazehoof, it felt like Tyrannical Week when it wasn't. So they were just too hard to kill. Temple of the Jade Serpent. This is one of the old dungeons brought back in. This one has a couple nasty things. The first one is Defiling Mist, channeled by the depraved Mistweavers. If you don't interrupt it on high keys, someone's going to die or the whole group's going to die. It does bonkers damage. So they reduce the damage by 20%. Touch of Ruin initial aura is now a curse effect, so it can be cleansed or better dealt with. That's also pretty cool. Wise Mari, improve the visibility of corrupted geysers warning effects. Yeah. I feel like once you learn the fight, you didn't really need this, but making it easier for people to see is good. It should help people deal with that a lot easier. Resolve an issue that could prevent Wise Mari's facing to display properly during wash away, which is the channeled beam, which is nice. I never encountered this, but I'm glad it's fixed. Pretty cool. Chopped out, touch of nothingness, damage reduced by 20%. This thing hurt real bad. I think this is the dot that would go out on 2 targets. And since healers can only cleanse once every 8 seconds, someone's just going to be eating it, and it does a lot of damage. Bounds of Reality reduces damage taken by 99% instead of granting immunity to all damage. You can still at least, probably just so you can target and mark and cast things without having to just be completely immune. So overall, some really good changes. I haven't run Ruby Life pools yet, I've been doing raids basically, but I'm curious to jump in and start pushing keys with these new changes. I think these are all great changes. There's not really anything here that shocked me. Some nice cleanup, some quality of life things, and some things that just make the dungeons a little bit more manageable, and not just kind of, feels like you're being cheated a little bit when you lose to it. So what do you think about these changes? Hopefully this is something you were expecting. If you've been pushing M+, if you've been jumping in a raid, maybe you don't care, but let me know what you think down below and comment on someone else's comment if they have an opinion that really just, grinds your gears, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're looking for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hi. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.